Jasmine Rivera clutched her worn leather portfolio tighter as she stepped through the gleaming glass doors of Mercy General Hospital. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floor of the lobby, and she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the grandeur of the place. This wasn't just any hospital. This was the Walsh Medical Center, owned by one of the wealthiest families in the country. And she was here for a job interview that could change her life forever. She had spent the last 3 years jumping from one part-time job to another, trying to make ends meet while pursuing her dream of becoming an artist. Her small studio apartment was filled with canvases and paintbrushes, but her bank account was nearly empty. When her best friend Ruby told her about the receptionist position at Mercy General, Jasmine knew she had to try, even though she felt completely out of place in such an upscale environment. The hospital bustled with activity. Actors in crisp white coats hurried past, nurses wheeled patients down wide corridors, and the soft chime of elevator bells created a constant soundtrack. Jasmine checked her watch and realized she was running a few minutes early, which gave her time to calm her nerves and review her resume one more time. She approached the information desk where a friendly elderly woman with silver hair smiled at her warmly. The name tag on her pink volunteer vest read Dorothy. "Good morning, dear. How can I help you today?" Dorothy asked, her voice carrying the kind of maternal warmth that immediately put people at ease. "I'm here for an interview with Mrs. Henderson in Human Resources," Jasmine replied, trying to keep the nervousness out of her voice. "My name is Jasmine Rivera." Dorothy's fingers flew across her computer keyboard as she looked up the information. "Let me see here. Yes, I have you down for 10:30. Mrs. Henderson's office is on the 3rd floor, suite 320. You'll want to take the elevator bank to your right. And when you get off, follow the signs for administrative offices." "Thank you so much," Jasmine said, grateful for the clear directions. The elevator ride felt like it lasted forever, even though it was only 3 floors. When the doors opened, Jasmine found herself in a different world entirely. Gone were the bustling emergency areas and patient rooms. This floor was quieter, more corporate, thick carpeting and oil paintings on the walls that probably cost more than she made in a year. She followed the signs for administrative offices, but the hallway seemed to branch off in multiple directions. The numbers on the doors weren't in order, and after a few wrong turns, Jasmine found herself in a section of the hospital she definitely wasn't supposed to be in. The signs here read private medical suites and executive consultation rooms. Checking her phone, she realized she only had 5 minutes before her interview. Panic started to set in. She couldn't be late for this opportunity. It was too important. She spotted what looked like an information desk at the end of the hallway and hurried toward it, hoping someone could redirect her. But as she got closer, she realized it wasn't an information desk at all. It was a nurse's station, and it appeared to be empty. The hallway continued to curve, and all the doors looked identical. She was completely lost. Room 315, 317, 319. She was getting further away from where she needed to be. In her haste to turn around, she accidentally bumped into a door that was slightly ajar. The door swung open wider, and before she could stop herself, she stumbled forward into the room. The space that greeted her was unlike anything she had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city skyline, and the room was furnished more like a luxury hotel suite than a hospital room. There was a sitting area with leather chairs, a massive mahogany desk, and medical charts and equipment, arranged with military precision. But what caught her attention immediately was the man standing with his back to her, looking out the window. He was tall with broad shoulders, wearing surgical scrubs that somehow looked more elegant on him than they had any right to. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite the early hour, and even from behind, there was something commanding about his presence. "Dr. Walsh," a voice called from what appeared to be an adjoining room. "The surgical team is ready for final prep. The patient's family is asking for an update." The man at the window turned around, and Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. She had expected to see an older man, perhaps someone in his 50s or 60s, given his reputation and wealth. Instead, she found herself staring at someone who couldn't be much older than herself, with striking gray eyes and a strong jawline that belonged on a magazine cover rather than in a surgical suite. This was Dr. Benjamin Walsh, the brilliant neurosurgeon who had taken over the family medical empire at the impossibly young age of 35. His picture had been in the newspaper business section just last month, but the photograph hadn't captured the intensity of his presence or the way he seemed to command attention without saying a word. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Benjamin's eyes widened slightly, clearly not expecting to find a stranger in his private consultation room. But instead of anger or annoyance, Jasmine saw something else in his expression. Curiosity, perhaps, or maybe just surprise. "I'm so sorry," Jasmine stammered, backing toward the door. "I got lost looking for the HR department, and I didn't mean to interrupt. I should go." But Benjamin held up a hand, stopping her retreat. "Wait," he said, his voice deeper and gentler than she had expected. "You're not interrupting anything important. Are you here for an interview?" Jasmine nodded, still feeling mortified by her mistake. "Yes, with Mrs. Henderson. I'm supposed to be there in 3 minutes, and I have no idea where I'm going." A small smile played at the corners of Benjamin's mouth. "The administrative offices can be tricky to find. Even some of our staff get lost up here." He moved toward his desk and pulled out a sheet of hospital letterhead, quickly drawing a simple map. "Here, this should help you find your way." As he handed her the paper, their fingers briefly touched, and Jasmine felt an unexpected jolt of electricity. Looked up to find Benjamin watching her with those intense gray eyes. And for a moment, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "What's the position you're interviewing for?" Benjamin asked, seemingly in no hurry for her to leave, despite the voice she had heard earlier calling about surgical preparations. "Medical receptionist," Jasmine replied. "It's probably not the most exciting job in the world, but I need something stable." Benjamin studied her for a moment, and she had the strange feeling that he was seeing more than just someone who had wandered into the wrong room. Sometimes the most important jobs are the ones that seem ordinary on the surface. The person at the front desk is often the first face patients see when they're scared or worried. It takes a special kind of person to make someone feel welcome and cared for during what might be the worst day of their life. His words caught her off guard. She hadn't expected such depth from someone who lived in a world of privilege and power. "I never thought of it that way," she admitted. "Dr. Walsh," the voice called again, more insistent this time. "The OR is ready." Benjamin glanced toward the adjoining room, then back at Jasmine. "I have to go. There's a young mother waiting for a surgery that could save her life, but I hope your interview goes well. This hospital needs more people who care about others." "Good luck with your surgery," Jasmine said softly. "I'll be thinking about her." Something shifted in Benjamin's expression, a warmth that transformed his entire face. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Jasmine made her way to the door, then turned back one more time. "Dr. Walsh, what you do, saving people's lives, it's incredible. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She left before he could respond, following the map he had drawn for her. As she hurried down the hallway, she couldn't shake the image of his face or the way her heart had started beating faster the moment their eyes met. She told herself it was just nerves about the interview, but deep down, she knew it was something more. The interview with Mrs. Henderson went better than expected. The older woman was impressed with Jasmine's volunteer work at local community centers and her genuine desire to help people. By the end of their conversation, Jasmine found herself being offered the position, pending a background check and reference verification. "We'll start Monday morning at 7, Mrs. Henderson explained. As they shook hands, "Ruby Martinez spoke very highly of you, and we always listen when our best nurses make recommendations." Walking back through the hospital lobby, Jasmine felt like she was floating. Not only had she landed the job, but she had also had the most intriguing conversation of her life with a man who was supposed to be completely out of her league. She knew she would probably never see Dr. Walsh again, given that he worked in the exclusive upper floors while she would be stationed at the main reception desk. But something told her that their brief encounter had changed something fundamental in both of their lives. 3 floors above, Benjamin stood in the scrub room, mechanically going through the pre-surgical routine he had performed thousands of times. But his mind wasn't on the complex procedure ahead or the patient waiting for him in the OR. Instead, he kept thinking about a pair of warm brown eyes and a voice that had wished him luck with genuine concern. In his 35 years, he had met countless people who wanted something from him. Money, connections, social status, business deals. He had learned to read people quickly, to identify the hidden agendas and ulterior motives that usually lurked beneath polite conversation. But the young woman who had stumbled into his office was different. She had looked at him like he was just a person, not a Walsh or a billionaire or a famous surgeon. When she wished him luck, it was because she genuinely cared about the patient he was about to operate on, not because she was trying to ingratiate herself with someone powerful. Dr. Walsh, his surgical assistant, appeared in the doorway. "We're ready for you in OR 7. Benjamin nodded, pushing thoughts of mysterious Brown. Eyes out of his mind. He had work to do, a life to save. But as he walked into the operating room and began the delicate procedure that would determine whether a young mother would see her children grow up, he found himself thinking about what the woman had said, that what he did was incredible, that he shouldn't let anyone tell him otherwise. The surgery lasted for hours and was a complete success. As Benjamin finally stripped off his surgical gloves and mask, he felt the familiar satisfaction that came with knowing he had made a real difference in someone's life. The young mother would recover fully, would dance at her daughter's wedding, and hold her grandchildren someday. But mixed with that professional satisfaction was something else, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The hope that somewhere in this vast hospital there was someone who saw him not as a symbol of wealth and privilege, but as a man who cared about saving lives. He didn't even know her name, but Benjamin Walsh found himself looking forward to Monday morning in a way he hadn't anticipated anything in a very long time. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp, autumn air that made everything feel possible. Jasmine stood in front of her small bathroom mirror, adjusting her new blazer for the third time. She had spent most of her savings on professional clothes for this job, but seeing herself dressed like she belonged in a place like Mercy General made every penny worth it. The main reception desk was located in the heart of the hospital's lobby, surrounded by comfortable seating areas and natural light streaming through tall windows. Mrs. Henderson introduced her to the other receptionists and showed her the computer system she would be using to check in patients and manage appointments. "Morning shift can be hectic," explained Caroline, a woman in her 50s who had worked at the hospital for over a decade. "We get a lot of anxious families, people who are lost, in emergency situations. The key is to stay calm and remember that everyone who walks through those doors is having one of the most stressful days of their life." Jasmine threw herself into the work with enthusiasm. She helped elderly patients navigate the check-in process, directed visitors to patient rooms, and answered countless phone calls. Each interaction reminded her why she had wanted this job in the first place. These people needed someone who cared, someone who could offer a kind word or a reassuring smile during frightening times. Around 10:30, she was helping a young father figure out insurance paperwork when she noticed someone approaching the desk. She looked up to find Dr. Benjamin Walsh standing there. Her heart immediately started beating faster. He was wearing a navy blue suit instead of surgical scrubs. Somehow he looked even more handsome than she remembered.
But it was his
Eyes that caught her attention. They were focused entirely on her, and there was something in his expression that made her forget about everything else in the lobby. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying that same gentle warmth she remembered from their first encounter. "Dr. Walsh," she replied, hoping her voice sounded more professional than she felt. "How can I help you?" "I was wondering if you could help me locate a file," he said, pulling out a piece of paper. "Patient records from last week's surgery." Jasmine knew immediately that this was not something the main reception desk would handle. Patient records were managed by a completely different department, and someone of Dr. Walsh's position would have direct access to any file he needed. But she also noticed the way he was looking at her, and she suspected this might not really be about patient records at all. "Let me check on that for you," she said, playing along. She turned to her computer and made a show of searching through various databases. "It looks like you would need to contact medical records directly. Your extension is 4782. "Thank you," Benjamin said, making no move to leave. "How was your first morning? Are you settling in well?" The young father she had been helping earlier cleared his throat, and Jasmine suddenly remembered she was supposed to be working. "It's been wonderful. Thank you for asking. Should probably get back to helping patients." Benjamin glanced at the growing line of people waiting to be checked in. Of course, maybe I could buy you coffee sometime this week to welcome you to the hospital properly. Jasmine felt her cheeks grow warm. Around them, she could sense other staff members watching the interaction with obvious curiosity. Dr. Benjamin Walsh didn't typically chat with reception staff, and he certainly didn't ask them out for coffee. That would be nice, she said softly. Thursday at 2, he suggested. There's a cafe on the second floor near the medical library. I'll be there, Jasmine promised. As Benjamin walked away, Caroline leaned over with raised eyebrows. Do you have any idea who that man is? Dr. Benjamin Walsh, Jasmine replied, still watching his retreating figure. Caroline laughed. That's Dr. Benjamin Walsh, heir to the Walsh medical fortune. His family owns this hospital and about half the medical facilities in the state. He's been featured on magazine covers as one of the country's most eligible bachelors. Jasmine felt her stomach drop. She had known he was wealthy and successful, but she hadn't fully grasped the extent of his family's power and influence. She said quietly. And he just asked you out for coffee, Caroline continued with a grin. Girl, you'd better wear something nice on Thursday. The rest of the week passed in a blur of nervous anticipation. Jasmine found herself thinking about Benjamin constantly, wondering what they would talk about and whether she was making a huge mistake. They came from completely different worlds. He was a billionaire surgeon who probably dated supermodels and socialites. She was a struggling artist who lived paycheck to paycheck. But when Thursday afternoon arrived, she found herself walking toward the medical library cafe with butterflies dancing in her stomach. The space was quiet and intimate, with small tables. Tucked between towering bookshelves, Benjamin was already waiting for her, and he stood up when she approached. You found it, he said with a smile that made her knees feel weak. Your directions were very good, she replied, settling into the chair across from him. They started with safe topics. He asked about her first week at work, and she told him about some of the patients she had helped. But gradually, their conversation became more personal. Jasmine found herself talking about her art, about the paintings that filled her small apartment and her dream of someday having her own gallery showing. What kind of paintings? Benjamin asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. Mostly landscapes and portraits, Jasmine explained. I like capturing moments of beauty in ordinary places, like the way sunlight hits a fire escape, or how a child's face looks when they're completely absorbed in play. Benjamin listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about her techniques and inspiration. When she apologized for talking too much about something he probably found boring, he shook his head firmly. It's not boring at all, he said. I spend most of my time around people who only want to talk about medical procedures or investment portfolios. Hearing about art, about creating something beautiful, it's refreshing. What about you? Jasmine asked. When you're not saving lives, what do you do for fun? Benjamin's expression grew thoughtful. Honestly, I work most of the time. I know that probably sounds pathetic, but surgery is demanding. And then there are family obligations, board meetings, charity events. That doesn't sound like much fun, Jasmine observed gently. It's not, Benjamin admitted. I can't remember the last time I did something just because I wanted to, not because it was expected of me. Something in his voice made Jasmine's heart ache. Despite all his wealth and success, there was a loneliness in Benjamin that she recognized. She had felt it herself during the long months of struggling to make ends meet, wondering if she would ever find her place in the world. What would? You do? She asked. If you could do anything you wanted this weekend, with no obligations or expectations? Benjamin considered the question seriously. I think I'd like to see some of your paintings, he said finally. If you wouldn't mind showing them to someone who doesn't know anything about art. Jasmine's breath caught, inviting him to her apartment. Felt like crossing a line, stepping into territory that might be dangerous for her heart. But looking into his eyes, she saw something that made the risk feel worthwhile. Saturday afternoon, she suggested. I'll bring lunch, Benjamin said, when Saturday arrived. Jasmine spent the morning cleaning her tiny studio apartment and arranging her paintings so they showed to their best advantage. She had never felt more nervous about someone's opinion. Of her work, Benjamin arrived precisely on time. carrying bags from an upscale deli that probably cost more than Jasmine's weekly grocery budget. But he didn't seem to notice the worn furniture or the peeling paint on the walls. His attention was completely focused on the canvases that covered every available surface. "These are incredible," he said softly, stopping in front of a painting. "Of children playing in a fountain, can actually feel their joy." For the next 2 hours, they moved through her small space as Benjamin examined each piece with the same intensity. He probably brought to studying medical scans. He asked questions about her process, her choice of colors, the stories behind specific paintings. "This one," he said, pausing in front of a portrait of an elderly woman feeding pigeons in a park. "There's something about her expression. I painted her last year," Jasmine explained. "I used to eat lunch in that park sometimes when money was tight. She was there every day, rain or shine, feeding the pigeons. One day, I asked her why, and she said it was the only way she could take care of something since her husband died. The birds needed her." Benjamin studied the painting for a long moment. He captured her perfectly. The loneliness, but also the purpose. It's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. They ate lunch sitting on her small couch, talking about everything and nothing. Benjamin told her about his medical training, about the first surgery he had ever performed, and how terrified he had been. Jasmine shared stories about her college, art classes, and the professor who had encouraged her to pursue painting professionally. "Can I ask you something personal?" Benjamin said as they finished eating. Jasmine nodded. "What? Why did you take the job?" "At the hospital? I mean, you're clearly talented enough to make a living as an artist." Jasmine was quiet for a moment, considering how honest to be. "Talent doesn't pay rent," she said finally. "I've been trying to make it as an artist for 3 years, and I've sold exactly 4 paintings. I need stability, health insurance, a steady paycheck. Dreams are wonderful, but they don't put food on the table." Benjamin's expression grew serious. "What if you didn't have to choose? What if you could have both stability and the freedom to pursue your art?" "That would be nice," Jasmine said with a sad smile. "But I live in the real world, not a fairy tale." "What if I could help?" Benjamin asked quietly. Jasmine felt her defenses rise immediately. "I don't need charity." "It wouldn't be charity," Benjamin said quickly. "The hospital hosts events throughout the year. Fundraisers, galas, board meetings. We're always looking for original artwork to display. If you were interested, I could arrange for some of your pieces to be shown. People would see your work, and if they wanted to purchase something, the hospital would only take a small commission." Stared at him. "You would do that?" "I would do that because you're talented and your work deserves to be seen," Benjamin said. "Not because I feel sorry for you, but because I think you have something special to offer the world." The rest of the afternoon passed in a warm haze of conversation and shared laughter. When Benjamin finally left, Jasmine felt like something fundamental had shifted between them. This wasn't just attraction anymore. It was the beginning of something deeper, something that scared and thrilled her in equal measure. But as she watched his expensive car disappear down her street, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into complicated territory. Benjamin lived in a world of privilege and power, where people's motives were constantly questioned and relationships were often transactional. How long would it be before someone convinced him that she was just another person trying to take advantage of his wealth? 3 floors above the hospital lobby, Patricia Walsh stood at the window of her executive office. Watching her son chat with the new receptionist for the 3rd time that week, she had built the Walsh medical empire alongside her late husband, and she had not done so by ignoring potential threats to the family's reputation and fortune. She picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. "Trevor, it's Patricia Walsh. I need you to look into someone for me." Quietly, of course. "Mrs. Walsh, what can I tell you?" "There's a young woman who's caught my son's attention. Jasmine Rivera. I want to know everything about her background. Her financial situation, her family, her motivations for taking a job here." "Understood. How thorough do you want me to be?" Patricia's voice grew cold. "It's thorough enough to know whether she's a gold digger looking for a wealthy husband or simply someone in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'll have a full report for you by Monday." As Patricia hung up the phone, she continued watching the scene below. She had worked too hard and sacrificed too much to see the Walsh legacy threatened by some nobody with pretty eyes and artistic Pretensions. If this girl thought she could sink her claws into Benjamin, she was about to learn just how wrong she could be. The morning Patricia Walsh received Trevor Nash's report on Jasmine Rivera, storm clouds were gathering outside the hospital's executive offices. She sat behind her mahogany desk, reading through pages of financial records, employment history, and personal details that painted a picture of a young woman struggling to survive. No family money, no significant assets, no connections to anyone of influence, Patricia murmured to herself as she turned the pages. Parents deceased, no siblings, living paycheck to paycheck, despite her college education. She picked up her phone and called Benjamin's office. "I need to see you immediately," she told his assistant. "Family matter." 20 minutes later, Benjamin knocked on his mother's door. She gestured for him to sit across from her desk, the same seat where she had delivered countless lectures about family responsibility and public image over the years. "We need to discuss your recent behavior," Patricia began, without preamble. "Several people have mentioned seeing you spending time with one of the hospital employees, a receptionist." Benjamin's jaw tightened. "My personal life is not hospital business. Everything you do is hospital business," Patricia replied sharply. "The Walsh name is on this building.
Oh.
Our family's reputation affects every patient, every employee, every donor who supports our mission."
Ow.
She slid the report across the desk. Jasmine Rivera, 28 years old, struggling artist with significant student loan debt and a history of unstable employment. "Tell me, Benjamin, what exactly do you think she wants from you?" Benjamin didn't touch the folder. "I think she wants to get to know me. The same thing I want from her." Patricia's laugh was cold. "Don't be naive. You're worth billions of dollars. Young women like her see you as a lottery ticket, a way out of their financial problems." "You don't know her," Benjamin said, his voice rising. "Jasmine isn't interested in my money. She barely even knew who I was when we first met." "Of course she knew who you were," Patricia scoffed. "Everyone in this hospital knows who you are. She probably researched your net worth before her first day of work." Benjamin stood up abruptly. "I'm not having this conversation with you. Sit down," Patricia commanded, her voice carrying the authority that had intimidated board members and business rivals for decades. "We're not finished," reluctantly. Benjamin returned to his seat. "I've spoken with the board," Patricia continued. "If you continue this inappropriate relationship, we'll be forced to take action. The hospital's reputation cannot be compromised by scandal." "What kind of action?" Benjamin asked quietly. "Miss Rivera's employment can be terminated for any number of reasons: poor performance, budget cuts, restructuring. And I can ensure she never finds another position in any medical facility in this state." The threat hung in the air like poison. Benjamin had seen his mother destroy careers before, had watched her use the Walsh influence to crush anyone she perceived as a threat to the family's interests. "You would ruin an innocent person's life just to control mine?" he asked, his voice heavy with disgust. "I would protect this family's legacy by any means necessary," Patricia replied. "Just as my mother did for me, and her mother did for her. The Walsh name has opened doors for you your entire life, Benjamin. It's time you started honoring that privilege." That afternoon, Benjamin found Jasmine in the hospital cafe during her lunch break. She smiled when she saw him approaching, but her expression quickly changed when she noticed the tension in his face. "What's wrong?" she asked, as he sat down across from her. Benjamin struggled to find the right words. "My mother knows about us. About the time we've been spending together." Jasmine's face paled. "I see, and she's not happy about it. She's concerned about the hospital's reputation," Benjamin said carefully. "She thinks our relationship could cause problems." "Our relationship?" Jasmine repeated softly. "Is that what this is?" Benjamin reached across the table and took her hand. "I hope so. I know this is complicated, and I know we come from different worlds, but what I feel for you is real, Jasmine. It's more real than anything I've ever experienced." Tears gathered in Jasmine's eyes, but not real enough to fight for. "That's not what I'm saying," Benjamin protested. I just need time to figure out how to handle this situation. Let me make it easy for you, Jasmine said, pulling her hand away. I'll quit. I'll find another job and you can go back to your life of board meetings and charity galas. No, Benjamin said firmly. I won't let you sacrifice your job because of my family's prejudices. Then what are you suggesting? Is that we sneak around like teenagers? Is that we pretend we barely know each other while we're at work? Benjamin's silence was answer enough. Jasmine stood up from the table. I thought you were different, Benjamin. I thought you saw me as more than just a complication to be managed. I do see you as more, he said desperately. You're everything. To me, Jasmine, you make me want to be better, to live for something more than just expectations and obligations. Not enough to stand up to your mother, Jasmine said quietly. I understand. You have responsibilities, a legacy to protect. I'm just the receptionist who got in the way. She walked away before Benjamin could respond, leaving him sitting alone in the cafe with the weight of his cowardice crushing down on him. That evening, Patricia Walsh made a phone call to the hospital's Human Resources Department. I need you to review Jasmine Rivera's employment file, she said. I've received some concerns about her performance that may require immediate attention. But Patricia had underestimated both Jasmine's resilience and Benjamin's capacity for growth. The next morning, Jasmine arrived at work early, determined to prove that she belonged at Mercy General regardless of anyone's opinion of her personal life. She threw herself into helping patients with renewed dedication, staying late to assist. With difficult cases and volunteering for additional responsibilities, word of her exceptional work ethic quickly spread through the hospital. Nurses praised her compassion with frightened families. Doctors complimented her efficiency in managing complex scheduling issues. Even patients began requesting her specifically when they needed assistance. Meanwhile, Benjamin spent sleepless nights wrestling with his conscience. He thought about his father, who had built the Walsh medical empire not for personal glory but to help people who couldn't help themselves. He remembered the values his parents had taught him about integrity, courage, and standing up for what was right. On Friday morning, he made his decision. Benjamin walked into his mother's office without knocking, something he hadn't done since he was a child. Patricia looked up from her paperwork with raised eyebrows. I'm in love with her, he announced without preamble. Benjamin, we've already discussed this. No, you talked, and I listened. Now I'm talking. His voice carried a strength Patricia had never heard before. I'm in love with Jasmine Rivera, and I'm going to pursue a relationship with her regardless of your approval. Patricia's face hardened. Then you're choosing to destroy everything this family has built. I'm choosing to build something new, Benjamin replied. Something based on love instead of fear, on truth instead of manipulation. If you continue down this path, there will be consequences. Then there will be consequences, Benjamin said calmly. But I won't live my life according to your fears anymore. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. And if you do anything to hurt Jasmine's career or reputation, I'll resign from every board, donate my inheritance to charity, and make sure everyone knows why. The Walsh name will be associated with petty cruelty instead of medical excellence. Patricia stared at her son as he walked out, recognizing something she hadn't seen since he was a small boy, determined to help injured animals despite her objections. Benjamin had found something worth fighting for, and that made him more dangerous to her plans than she had anticipated. That afternoon, Benjamin found Jasmine in the hospital garden, a small outdoor space where staff and patients could get fresh air. She was sitting alone on a bench, sketching in a small notebook. What are you drawing? He asked as he approached. Jasmine looked up, surprised. Just the way the light hits the fountain. I thought you were avoiding me. Benjamin sat down. Beside her, I was because I was scared. Of what? Of choosing between you and my family, of disappointing people, of not being strong enough to protect you from the consequences of loving me. Jasmine closed her sketchbook. And now? Now I know that losing you would be worse than any of those things, Benjamin said. I love you, Jasmine. Not because you're convenient or safe or what anyone expects, but because you make me want to be the man I was meant to be instead of the man everyone thinks I should be. Tears spilled down Jasmine's cheeks. I love you too, but loving someone isn't always enough. "It's enough for me," Benjamin said softly. "If you'll let it be enough for you too." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Jasmine's eyes widened. "I know this is fast, and I know it's complicated. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy," Benjamin said as he dropped to one knee. "Jasmine Rivera, will you marry me? Will you help me build something beautiful together?" Around them, hospital staff and patients had begun to notice the scene unfolding in the garden. Whispers and excited murmurs filled the air as word spread that Dr. Benjamin Walsh was proposing to the receptionist. Jasmine looked at the ring, then at Benjamin's face, then at the crowd of people watching them with expressions ranging from delight to shock. She thought about all the obstacles they would face, all the people who would question their motives and judge their choices. Then she thought about the way Benjamin looked at her paintings, the gentle way he spoke to frightened patients, the loneliness she had seen in his eyes that first day they met. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes," Benjamin repeated, his voice filled with wonder. "Yes, I'll marry you," Jasmine said louder, laughing through her tears. "I'll help you build something beautiful." The crowd erupted in applause as Benjamin slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her under the afternoon sun. In her executive office, high above, Patricia Walsh watched the scene through her window with a mixture of fury and reluctantly growing respect. Her son had made his choice, and for the first time in years, it was a choice based on his own heart rather than her expectations. She could continue fighting, could make their lives difficult in countless ways. Or she could accept that Benjamin had found something she had never been able to give him, someone who loved him for who he truly was, not what he represented. 6 months later, Jasmine Rivera became Jasmine Walsh in a small ceremony held in the hospital's garden. Her artwork now hung in galleries across the city, and she continued working as a patient advocate at Mercy General, using her position to ensure that everyone who walked through their doors felt valued and cared for. Patricia Walsh still didn't entirely approve of her daughter-in-law's humble background, but she had to admit that Benjamin had never been happier or more motivated in his work. Sometimes she realized the best thing a mother could do was step aside and let her children write their own love stories. And in the quiet moments between surgeries and board meetings, Benjamin would sometimes pass by the main reception desk just to catch a glimpse of his wife's smile, remembering the day. A wrong turn had led him to everything he never knew he needed.